If people want to line up at it, and I'll get to as many as I can in a reasonable period of time. A walrus puppet is the first I was walking around today and someone said, "Dude, you are doing him so well." I was like, "Thank you!"
All I want is a photo.
Oh, absolutely.
Get my husband up here. David, where are you?
All right. Yes, sir.
Hi. I had a question about some of your methodology on Mythbusters. One of the problems in academics today is that a lot of science has become so high level and so esoteric that a lot of people just can't follow along. And it's very difficult for academics to really explain these things. And I was wondering what your thoughts were on the style of Mythbusters to make science more available to the common people, to everybody, despite the 40 warnings per episode. Do not try this at all.
We didn't set out to make a show that was educational in the scientific method or any of that. All of that happened by accident. It happened because of Jamie's and my personality, that we are genuinely curious, and when we want to investigate something, it turns out that what you end up doing is the scientific method. We know now that that's the story, and it turns out, actually, also, which is beneficial for us in television, that the structure of the scientific method grids beautifully onto the narrative arc. And so, where each scene follows from its predecessor because of the reason, we understand that we're telling a story. And we understand also that because we don't have degrees in science, and we often disagree vehemently about why something might be, that tension is what makes the story interesting. That's where we take it seriously and where we really delve into it. Like, my producer knows that when we're arguing, that's going to be a key part of the episode, because if she can't understand what we're saying, the audience won't. And we get all the way inside those things. You know, there's this myth out there among gun aficionados that the moment the cap on a bullet fires, as the bullet's going down the barrel, that the barrel lives. I don't think this is true, but Jamie and I fight about it every time we mount a handgun into a ransom rest, because he's like, well, it's off because of the barrel lift. And I'm like, I've looked at hundreds of shots of guns at 8,000 frames per second, and I've never seen the barrel lift one iota until the bullet leaves the barrel. I consider that foolproof empirical evidence that it doesn't happen. He's like, well, gun guys say that it does. I'm like, well, they're all wrong. And, you know, we'll build that into an episode. So I appreciate that scientists give us such props for demonstrating that science is this messy, creative process, really. I mean, it's deeply creative. And that's the most exciting thing about it for us, is nutting out. We're about to do ricochet bullets in a couple weeks. And you start to try and unpack that. One ricochet, two ricochets, three ricochets, off of steel, off of concrete, what is it? And once we start to unpack what kind of story we want to tell, Jamie's interested in one direction, I'm interested in another, and after 4 hours of arguing back and forth, we've got a stunner of an episode coming up. And honestly, one of the things we're most excited about is because we know halfway through it's going to be very different than we thought. We plotted out what we think is going to happen. We know we're probably totally wrong, which is really exciting.
Well, will you ever do a try it at home episode?
No.
That's probably a very good idea. Devoted fans here, obviously. For those of us that follow Don't Try This, do we have another hint for Adam Incognito?
Another hint?
Unless you've been found yet, but I don't think so.
There's been a lot of guesses today. And I will say that at least three, I've been trying to follow on my phone. It's a lot of Apple has to go through, especially the crappy cell reception I get in the hotels. 3 people have gotten it right so far, at least. So there are some correct guesses out there, and I think there's a couple of bugs, but I'm still planning to walk the floor one more time in costume tomorrow, and we'll see if someone walks up to me and says, "I got you!"
Excellent, thank you.
Mythbusters is almost always on in our household. My husband's a physics teacher, and he was able to make a hovercraft with his students based on your episode. So that being the case, I know what we get out of the show. What do you hope that viewers get out of the show?
Well, like I said, we know that we're telling a story. And see, when I say we didn't set out to make an educational show, I mean that really specifically. Like, if we had set out to do that, I think we would have failed. Most science programming up until now, except for some exceptions, has been demonstrative science. They tell you about a concept and then they show you how it works. We are experimental science. We know about a concept and we try something until we get something that looks like it's demonstrating that. And that tension of we're not sure what's going to happen, I think, is what makes the story interesting. Wait, where was I? What was your original question?
What do you hope viewers get out of the show?
Well, so I think I try not to think about what the viewers are going to learn. I want to explain what I'm explaining clearly, but our fealty is to the story. A good story is going to be interesting in and of itself, and we sometimes set out to illustrate a certain concept and then realize there's a much more interesting one that we want to illustrate. We often leave really cool ones on the cutting room floor because 44 minutes is just too short. I mean, the first 3 seasons we were doing 3 minutes per episode, so there's just tons of crap that we couldn't fit in there. We're now much better at knowing pretty much what's going to go in there. But what we want the audience to see is a good story.
What's your favorite myth to do?
My favorite myth, it's a tough one, because often it's the thing I just did last week. And we are, unlike normal television where they shoot for like 9 months and they get 3 months off, we don't have any down season. We shoot 44 weeks a year. It is a running freight train, and really whatever you see me and Jamie doing, we're doing. There's some people that help us behind the scenes. For the most part, it's us. We got someone that started cleaning up the shop about a year ago. But of all the episodes, of all the explosions, of all the stuff, my personal favorite happens to be Lead Balloon. It is a totally pointless endeavor, which makes it beautiful. 28 pounds of lead in a 14-foot diameter balloon floating above us. It took so much thought from us. It took so much, I mean, the way Jamie and I work very differently, but we work in a very similar fashion, which is we have to put the thing into our heads before we can build it. And actually, once I put the structure into my head, building it is trivial. I don't even need a ruler. Because usually one's not within hand's reach. You have to put it in your head to understand it. It's what makes good programmers, makes good everybody. And a craftsman is someone that can hold the whole thing in their head. And on that one, as we're trying to piece together this balloon, and that origami fold that I came up with for the balloon unpacking is one of the most, to me, it's one of the finest moments I've ever had in terms of a creative, like, in my head on the show. That whole process, I thought about it for a month, and it took 10 minutes when I finally did it. It's delicious. And the episode really clearly shows how much we enjoyed that process, that internal process of figuring that stuff out. And all the different things that could go wrong. In the end, Jamie threw a baseball through the thing and it just fell to the ground and made a thud, which showed how close we were to failure, which is even better. Lead Balloon.